Are you a footballer who wants to maximize your performance to succeed at the top level? My new ebook, Strength and Conditioning 101 for Female Footballers, is now available. For free and instant access, simply head on over to jacobandre.com. Link is in the show notes. The Women's Footy Podcast is brought to you by Fitness Works. With 3 convenient locations in Darwin at Darwin City, Nightcliff and Allawa, these gyms are world-class family exercise centres offering the latest equipment with friendly and fully qualified staff. For more information, check out fitnessworksnt.com.au. G'day and welcome to the Women's Footy Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Andre, and today I am talking to FootyFit's member, BellaBoyd. Bella, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
What's been happening? How's training going at the moment?
Good, actually. I'm playing heaps of social sports, so I'm definitely on my toes, pretty much playing sport 4 days a week at the moment.
What sports are you playing in addition to footy, which is obviously the off season at the moment, or up here for NTFL? You might be playing. Well, tell me a little bit about what sport you're playing, and if you are playing footy, where you're playing footy.
Yep. So I'm playing netball for the first time, which is 2 days a week, and I'm playing AFL 9 socially, and I'm also playing touch football through work. I'm also, we'll get into it a bit later in the show, but I'm playing footy in Cairns as well.
Oh, cool. So you're obviously not living in Cairns then. You're flying in and out?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, okay, cool. And so are you going every weekend, or is it for a select number of games for the season?
It is just for a select number of games in the season. But when finals come, it'll be probably a few more games if we get into finals.
Yeah, cool. So I'm interested, I'm just going to deviate off. I haven't prepped you with this question, but so sorry about that. But have you found that the FootyFit program, the strength and conditioning elements of it have helped you with other sports like netball? Netball is the one I'm probably most interested in, but even touch. Do you think it's helped you at all with those other sports? I'm genuinely intrigued.
Yeah, absolutely. The girls on my team are like, oh, you can jump really high. And when I'm changing directions and stuff, I have a lot of confidence that I'm not going to be injured, and I have the strength behind me to not get injured in that aspect.
That's music to my ears. I love hearing that. So tell me a little bit about your background, your journey into football. What got you into football, and why footy?
Yeah, so I had a few friends playing footy, and I joined when I was in under 18s, which was about 5 or so years ago. And then I kind of just played that for 2 years, and then after that I played a bit of Div 1, a couple of Prems games, and I also didn't play as well for a couple of years. In those couple of years after under 18s, it was just a mixture. It was, all those games and not playing at the same time. But then in 2021, I fully committed to playing Premier League. But unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, I had to move to the Gold Coast about maybe 4 or 5 rounds into that season. But it was perfect timing, actually, because the full season had just started pre-season. So I joined a team down there called the Southport Sharks, and they are well known and a very professional club. And I went on to win a 2022 premiership with them in the Rezzies, which was really exciting. And then pretty much fell in love with footy there. I became almost obsessed. And then I moved back quickly after that and played the full NTFL season. I think that was the 22-23 season in Premier League. That was my first full season in Premier League. And then I maintained my relationship with Southport Sharks and got to fly back there. Made arrangements to fly back there for, I think I played 4 games in the 2023 season. And then played the full 23-24 season that recently just passed back here in the NTFL for Crocs. And yeah, more recently I've had the opportunity to go down to Cairns, and I played there round 1 and 2. And yeah, this weekend actually I'm flying back to play my 100th ever game of football, which is not senior footy, but junior footy as well. But that's still a really exciting milestone for me.
Yeah, definitely. Congratulations. That's awesome. So across those 3 different competitions, NTFL, is it the QAFLW where Southport Sharks play?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's the league called in Cairns?
I think it's just Cairns
AFLW. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the biggest difference that you notice between those 3 leagues?
Yeah, good question. Queensland AFLW, I was playing in the reserves side, and it is still a really intense, highly skilled competition. I would say that compares to our Premier League competition up here. We're really lucky in the NTFL that we get to have some AFLW players play in our comp, and lots of VFL players come and play as well in their off season, because it's our on season, so that lifts the competition a bit more. And in Cairns, it's not yet at that point that I would say the NTFL is at, in terms of like skill level, in terms of number of teams in the competition, and all of that sort of stuff. So I found that it is varying levels of skill.
Yeah, cool. So you've been a member of FootyFit for over about a year, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm pretty sure it's over a year. But you've definitely done an in-season, and you're in a preseason. I think you did a preseason last year too. What were your initial thoughts when you first heard about FootyFit?
Yeah, so I love learning, and I always strive to improve my game. So hearing about the program was a bit of a light bulb moment for me, where I thought, wow, this is something that I could use to improve my own game, because that's all I ever really strive to do. And I didn't have much knowledge on how to do it myself. So having someone like you with all the knowledge that you have was like gold to me. I was like, I was just really excited to try and improve my game. I just want to be the best player that I can be. And I thought that the program was definitely going to help me in that aspect. And just hearing that it was designed specifically for females was also a bit of a bonus, just because us female footballers, well, myself, we're pretty conditioned to everything being tailored to men. So to hear that it was designed specifically for females was also really refreshing.
Yeah, it's funny. And I hope we can deviate off a little bit here for a moment, because that's something I really want to talk about, because the thing that I've really noticed in recent times on this podcast. So I started this podcast in 2017 as the Mind Your Body Show, and it was generally around general health. And ultimately, the people I was working with back then were kind of like weight loss clients, and they were typically middle-aged women. So then I kind of, over the years, I'd always sort of worked with football clubs and stuff like that. And then when the opportunity with the Crows come up, that kind of really like excelled my career, I suppose, into that domain. And so it became kind of like much more about football, still a lot of males, but it became more and more females over the last few years. And so hence why I changed the podcast to the Women's Footy Podcast. And it's something I got really passionate about is helping women in football. And so with that, I have started to interview more and more guests who are related to women's footy. And a lot of them have actually been men. And in particular, I'm thinking of like Jordan Seller and Jared Kay. So Jordan is the high performance manager at the Adelaide Crows. Jared Kay is a strength with the women. and Jared Kay is a strength and conditioning coach with Richmond with the women. And then there's also Eliza Morrison, who is the high performance manager with Richmond with the women. They all work with men as well, but they're primarily women. And the one thing those three people in particular say, and most strength and conditioning coaches will talk about, like Kurt Vogel, Nathan Kiley, Nathan Parnham, who are also guests on the podcast, is that there's not much difference between men and women when it comes to the way you need to train them. So I kind of thought, yeah, okay. But there is definitely some differences. And Kurt's episode was about the menstrual cycle and performance. So what I think is where there are a lot of similarities with male and female athletes in the way you train them, there are also differences. And I think you have to be aware of that. And an obvious one is the menstrual cycle. So I am real passionate about making sure that FootyFit, yes, that it's suitable for men to do, but it's more so about women and having something specific for women. Because, for example, one thing that I got from Kurt was that, you know, and Jared talked about this as well, was in terms of like percentage-based prescription, exercise prescription versus effort. And so when you're prescribing exercise, what I like to do is to go more around the RPE, which is rate of perceived exertion. And that is giving someone something to do based on how they feel that day. Because for a woman in particular, throughout the month, as their body cycles through varying amounts of hormones, they're going to be able to do more and do less at certain times. And so rather than say, I'm going to prescribe exercise based on percentages. So here's your 1RM squat and it's say 90 kilos. So we're going to work off 80% of that. Rather than do that all throughout the month in one of our phases, which are monthly, and that's our microcycle, is to go, I want this to be more about RPE, so rate of perceived exertion and how you feel. So I want this to be an 8 out of 10, which means that an 8 on that scale would be very, very hard. But I want it to be what very, very hard is on this day, which might be different to what it was 2 weeks ago. So how do you find that do you modify the program a little bit when you're in the gym and go, oh, I'm having a sluggish day today, I'm going to drop the weight back, or do you just push through?
Yeah, good question. It really does resonate with me when you say that exercise based on feel. So yes, some days I will, and that's the good thing about the program as well, is they have the conditioning and the strength, and you can choose which one you want to do, whether you want to do both or one or the other. And I like to choose which one I do based on how I'm feeling as well. But yes, when I'm in the gym, like say I am having a sluggish day, sometimes I might only be able to complete 80% of the program for that day, or I will modify the weight to be a lighter weight so it's not as strenuous on the body as well. Especially when you are playing sport and doing extra training, I think it's really important to listen to your body and how you are feeling, because I've definitely pushed it past the limit and I've been humbled really quickly to not do that ever again. So yeah, definitely listen to your body in terms of how hard you push yourself in those training sessions. But I think it's also really important to mention that consistency is probably key. So if you are having a sluggish day, then yeah, maybe tone it down a little bit, but still try and get something in.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's a good point in that you can choose the strength or the conditioning. Because initially when I created FootyFit, it was only strength. It was a strength program. And it was actually Gemma Okono, who is the most recent interview on the podcast, who said to me, can I have some running stuff? And so I started throwing in some conditioning sessions, which were, you know, like there was speed, agility, speed endurance, repeat sprints, and aerobic endurance. Like that's sort of the five main areas I like to include when it comes to conditioning. And so I was sort of throwing things in, and then I hate not having like a fully structured plan that I can see from, you know, A to Z. And so I spent like painstaking hours sitting down, making sure that every session, every conditioning session, the speed one, the agility one, the speed endurance, and so on, was progressive through taking you through from here to here. So day one of preseason to grand final day. And so, but then when a lot of people come into the program and they look at what's available, they go, oh my goodness, like I can't do all this. Do I have to do all this, Jacob? And the answer is always no. Like, yes, it's there for you if you want it. If you are a professional athlete who doesn't have to work and you're making money from playing football and all your endorsements and you don't have to do anything else, then sure, it's all there for you. If you're working a job and running a business on the side and got kids and a husband and everything else, then yes, you can still do all that if you can fit it into your life, but you have to find out where you're at and what you can commit to and what you actually want to get out of it. So yeah, it's all there for you if you want it. But if you can't fit that all into your life, then that's your choice. And I love that you're probably the one that does it better than anyone else in terms of going, okay, every day I've got a strength and a conditioning session. I can do both of them. I can do a session in the morning. I can do a session in the afternoon. And the way that they're kind of structured in the program is that I recommend one first. So for like, it might be a gym session and swimming. And so it might be one is the priority. So whichever one is the priority is the one that's on top when you look at it. But you might go, well, he's got swimming on top, but I don't want to do swimming, or I can't get to the pool today or whatever. So I'm going to do the gym. So you can do, the point of that though, is to go, okay, in an ideal world, I've got a speed session and a strength session. And he's saying to do the speed session first, then the strength session. And with the speed endurance, it might be, he's saying doing the strength session first and then the speed endurance. So if you do them, if you can't do morning and night or morning and afternoon, and you have to do it in one block, say from 4:30 till 7:30 or whatever it might be, that's obviously a long block, but then you can do that in one go. And here's what I recommend you do first. And the other thing too, a little bit of history on the program here, which comes back to Gemma, is that the conditioning stuff can be done where we can modify it, where 1 week you do strength, the other week you do conditioning. So it doesn't have to be choose one or the other. And the reason why I say that, and the reason why this came about, was Gemma actually, and she won't mind me saying this because she spoke about this on her episode, has her daughter every second week. So the week that she has her daughter, she wanted to be able to do conditioning. And so she did all the conditioning sessions 1 week with her daughter because she could take her to the oval with her. The other week when she didn't have her daughter, she would be able to go to the gym, and it was much easier for her to get to the gym. So the 4 gym sessions, she was doing the mature athlete program. The 4 gym sessions were when she didn't have her daughter, and the 4 conditioning sessions, or whatever sessions it was in the conditioning, was in the other week. So I love that you brought that up. Thank you very much.
Okay, all good.
Hey, Jacob here with a quick message. If you're enjoying this episode of the Women's Footy Podcast and you want more fitness tips for the female footballer, I encourage you to join our Instagram channel, FootyFit Fam. Link is in the show notes. Now, back to the show. So what were your goals when you started FootyFit? What did you want to get out of it?
I didn't have any specific goals that come to mind. I don't want to make AFLW or anything like that. I guess I kind of just wanted to improve my game, even if it was just by 1%. And I suppose that was just my goal. I just wanted to be a better player. I just wanted to be a better person. I just wanted to be fitter. I just wanted to be able to run longer. I just wanted to be stronger. And I wanted to build confidence as well.
Again, I'm glad you brought that up, because this is another thing that I get asked a lot, and it is, what if I don't want to get drafted? And so I think I have to be careful here, because a lot of my website has testimonials of players who have been drafted and are playing AFLW, or have been drafted from doing the program. And you certainly do not need to. Of course, they're the more familiar names that people recognize and resonate with. I do need to get more testimonials from people like yourself, where it's like, I just wanted to take my game to the next level. I wanted to get better. I wanted to better myself, I wanted to better my game, and I wanted to become a better football player, and hopefully even better human as a result. But it is certainly for anyone, no matter what your goals are, even if you don't want to get drafted into the AFLW, you just want to play in a higher league, you want to continue playing in the league you're playing in, but play better, or you just simply want to get fit. It's like, that's how I'm using it. I'm not playing football. I'm not hoping to get drafted. I'm 41 years old. I'm well past it. I am not even playing Div 2 footy anymore. Like, it's just to keep fit. And I right now actually feel fitter and better than I have for a very long time, probably ever, in fact. So, I think it's a great program if you just want to get fit.
And I think those goals come hand in hand with what you were talking about before, with being able to modify the program to what you want to achieve. So if you want to make AFLW, then yeah, you probably do want to be doing the conditioning and the strength sessions every day and following the program to a T. But also, if your goals are just to be fit and, if you just want to be better, you can do what Gemma's doing and do the conditioning one week. And so that kind of ties in with, I'm not sure what her goals are, but like with her family commitments. And for me, being able to pick and choose what I want to do and what I want to get out of it is how much effort I'm going to put into the program and how I'm going to follow that. So I think, yeah, the goals really also come into it when you're choosing what you're doing that day as well.
Yeah, and for anyone who is wanting to get drafted, male or female, one of the things that I heard a fair bit when I was working at the Northern Territory Institute of Sport, now this NT Sports Academy, was that players coming into the system, into the AFL system, were essentially quite underdeveloped. And so the clubs were having to, and this is like probably 10 years ago, this is male athletes. So at 10 to 15 years ago. So what they were having to do was stuff that should have already been done. And what we noticed at the Institute of Sport, particularly around sort of that 2010 to 2015, which is slightly just before I got there, was that a lot of athletes coming in were lacking a lot of fundamental strength. And so even the institute, which was a developmental institute trying to get players from here to be ready to walk into an elite professional program at an AFL club, they weren't even here. They weren't even at that point. So the institute was having to go back and teach them basic fundamental stuff like bracing in order to perform a proper push-up and a proper squat and being able to squat correctly. And a lot of that goes back. These kids were born around sort of 2000 to 2005-ish, which was around the same time, interestingly, this is a bit of coincidence, that the smartphones started to come out around 2005, 6-ish. And so a lot of kids weren't playing as much around that age. So they were not as physically competent because they weren't doing the typical, pushing, pulling, jumping, squatting type movement patterns, crawling, climbing, all that type of stuff. And so the Institute was doing a lot of fundamental movement type stuff. And that was where I actually came in to help develop that. But what I wanted out of FootyFit was to be able to take someone through to a point where if they got drafted, the club was like, this kid's ready to go. They're kind of like, if you look at Harley Reid right now in the AFL, like step straight into the system and start performing well because he's done the fundamental strength that he needs and then the fundamental stuff in the gym. So, and he's got the tank, like he can handle the conditioning side of things. So from a bit of a selfish, egotistical point of view, I suppose you could say, like I wanted people to go, what have you done? And then someone to go, FootyFit with Jacob. Because then it just sets the player up so much more for success. And it's just so much easier for the strength and conditioning staff at the club that they're at. And then for coaches to be able to select them immediately if they're drafting these high draft picks, for example.
Especially in the Northern Territory, it's really difficult to get your hands on something that is that high quality as well. Because typically the Northern Territory are a little bit behind the rest of Australia. So it's really good to have something like that at your fingertips if you needed it.
Yeah. So in terms of the strength training component of the program, how did the strength component impact your on-field performance?
Yeah, so I think the strength component of the program made everything feel a lot easier. So things that I would normally struggle with, like for example, I used to fall to my knees a lot when I go to pick up the ball and I just get bumped over. So I felt I was a lot stronger when I was lower to the ground. And there's this one specific memory that comes to mind with this one, where me and an old teammate were going for a ball on the ground. We came in on an angle and we clashed, and I was able to keep my feet and stay in the play. She actually messaged me the next day and sent a photo of her bruised leg, and she goes, "Geez, you hit hard, girl." And I don't think I would have been able to do that without the strength from the program. So that's just a good example in my mind of how the strength has helped me on the field. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I love hearing that. I always say that strength underpins conditioning, and really, like, when you do the strength work, it just makes it so much easier. Actually, here's a personal example. So in must have been late the season of 2019, 2020, I went back for one season to play Div 2 footy. And I had been doing like weights for probably 3 to 6 months leading up to it. And I changed the type of weights that I was doing. And essentially, it was a bit more FootyFit type stuff. And went and played this game, and I was like, man, I felt like I was just so bouncy. I was running across the top of the ground. I just felt I wasn't necessarily doing heaps more running at that point in time, but the running on the field and the playing of the game, the tackling, the getting, knocked down onto the ground, getting back up, like the kicking, it was so much easier. And I'm like, man, where was this before? Why didn't I do this earlier?
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that. Everything just felt just like that little bit easier to do. Even like you say, when you're making the tackle and you're getting up off the ground and you're getting pushed over and you're getting back up all the time, like it just doesn't eat up your energy in the way that it used to.
Yeah, and I'm going to deviate off footy for here for a second, because I hear this a lot with the long distance runners that I work with. So typically long distance runners don't do much weights or any weights at all. And there's one long distance runner in particular that I'm thinking of, El Shembri, who and she does these like half marathons, and ultra marathons, like all these like crazy things. And when I was training her, one of the things that I got her to do was a running specific strength program for long distance running. And she was saying that she used to get sore knees around the 15 to 18K mark in a half marathon distance run. And she was no longer getting that anymore. She was also starting to, so she was getting the sore knees at that point, and she was also fatiguing heavily from the 18K mark. So everything from 18Ks was really difficult. And she was finding that because of the strength training, she was able to still feel strong right through to the 21K mark. So no matter what sport it is, strength underpins everything, and it makes that sport, one, easier to play or perform in, and two, much more enjoyable as a result.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that until I actually started doing strength as well. I didn't realize how much easier it actually would be. So until I did it.
Yeah. So in terms of skills, your skill development, in what ways did the program, and there hasn't been anything too much that you've done, we haven't done anything specific on skills, but from the strength and conditioning, in what ways has that enhanced your football skills alongside of the physical conditioning?
Yeah, so agility is probably a big one, which I didn't realize I was terrible at until I started doing it in the program. But that definitely helped on the field. But also just having that extra fitness under my belt really helped when I was practicing my fundamental skills like kicking and handballing. And yeah, having that extra fitness under my belt meant that I could work on those skills without being fatigued. And I think that really helped me last season because I had improved a fair bit I've still got a fair bit to go in that area, but I also improved a lot. And I definitely feel like having that extra fitness was the reason why, because when you're fatigued, obviously your skill kind of drops a level, and being able to focus on the little fundamentals and executing those additional skills it definitely helped. And shepherding as well, like when you're shepherding someone, you're holding their whole body weight behind you. And that's something I feel like I've also improved last season.
Yeah, and in terms of injury prevention, did you notice any improvements in terms of injury prevention and recovery due to the program?
Yeah, so in terms of injury prevention, I had one minor ankle roll and a tackle, but the recovery time was really short and I returned pretty quickly to playing, and I've not redone it since. So I've heard that that's really common when you roll your ankle, that it reoccurs, and I have not re-rolled it, especially playing netball as well. It definitely has tested it out a bit. So I would say that was due to the strength that I built during the program. And in terms of recovery, yeah, my recovery time from that injury was really, really minor. And also, we train on Mondays. So when you play on, say, a Saturday or even a Sunday, it's really important to try and be as recovered as you can by Monday training, so that you can, practice those skills and perform at training. So I felt, because of all the extra training that I was doing, that I was preparing my body really well, and it was adapting and it was recovering a lot quicker too. Usually I'd have a lot of muscle soreness by that Monday, and while that was still there sometimes, it was much lesser than what I would normally experience.
Yeah, it's funny, those damn ankles. Gemma had a really, really bad rolled ankle where she did some major damage to some ligaments and put her out for about a long time within the season. And yeah, similar thing. So I talk a lot about lower leg strength, particularly for running, but in terms of improving your running, because football is a running based sport. It's the one thing you do more than anything else in a game of football. And in terms of, one of the things that people say they injure a lot is their ankles. And I think doing the lower leg stuff is so important. And that's like the tibialis anterior strengthening for the front of the lower leg, the two muscles in the back of the lower leg, so the soleus and the gastrocnemius, but the pogos are number one. Doing those pogos, I hope you were doing them. I hope you continue to do them, because that's the number one exercise. If people could only do one exercise, in my opinion, that would be it. Pogos, they just strengthen up all the tendons in the lower leg, particularly the Achilles tendon, but also the other tendons in are in the feet, and support the ankle. And they're just so valuable. And then changing that's actually something I've added in recently into the agility session, is that changing of direction type, light plyometric type stuff, which is what pogos are, just a low level plyometric exercise, and doing it from a linear point of view, on the spot initially, then forward and back, then side to side, so laterally, and then on a diagonal, in both diagonals. So yeah, it's that there's key, those pogos.
I'd be microwaving my food, and while I was waiting, I'd just be doing some pogos. But you also reminded me, I notoriously had shin splints for the last 3 years that I could remember. And this season I had them at the start, and I think that was from overtraining. But yeah, they don't even exist right now. They're not even a thought in my mind.
Oh, that's awesome. That's, so good to hear. The fourth muscle that I'll talk about in the lower leg, so I've mentioned the tibialis anterior, and that's the tibialis posterior. And sometimes it's enough with just those three other muscles that you're targeting, and some of the other stuff that you're doing, including the pogos. But sometimes you need to go a little bit further and target the tibialis posterior. And there's one certain exercise you can do to do that. There's a video on my Instagram, people want to check that out, but and on YouTube. But that there's something you could do. Obviously, you didn't need to do that, because I know that wasn't in your program. So that's great to hear that the shin splints went away just from doing the stuff that you were doing in the program.
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of personal challenges, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced during the program, and how did you overcome them?
This is a tough question. But I was going through some challenges with my relationship with footy, particularly last season. And I felt really defeated and unmotivated to play and continue doing extras for this game that I felt at the time was just giving me nothing but grief. And the way I overcame that was, it wasn't until Dan, the coach from Cairns, reached out and expressed his interest in flying me to play over in Cairns in the off season. And that really started to turn things around for me. I felt refreshed and motivated, and I really started putting a lot more effort into my training from then on, because I realized that the extras that I was doing was not for nothing, and it was for opportunities like that to arise. And I got the opportunity, so that was definitely refreshing. And then I just hit it head on. I was like, let's go.
Well, you know, I'm always there for you, and you can reach out and send me a message in the app. We use the Team Builder app to deliver the program, and you can reach out within that. Of course, you can reach out on Instagram as well, but which a lot of people do. And what we're going to do a lot more of moving forward is using the team feed function to be able to communicate with other players in the program, as well as bring in other people like Samantha, who's a wellness consult, Jasmine Hewitt, who's a AFLW premiership player, who's a mentor in the program, Eliza Morrison, as I've already alluded to, high performance manager at Richmond, who's a coach in there for support. So I'd like to focus on more of that. But in terms of what support you got from me, how important was that? And what difference did that make?
Yeah, so it was really important to me because we spoke a lot about modifying the program to my needs. Like, for example, when I did do my ankle, we modified that program to be able to, suit my needs. So I knew that if I ever needed to contact you, I could send you a message whenever with whatever, and I would get a response. It really helped when you were there to be able to help change the program based on what was happening around that time, and even being on holiday and stuff, like, being able to modify it to just be body weight and still get the same thing out of the program. So it was really important to have you there, and also provide feedback to me so that I could improve what I was doing. And in turn, it just made things easier for me. 100%.
How did the program help you build mental toughness and resilience on and off the field?
This is a good one, because I felt like it gave me a lot of confidence. I knew that in the back of my mind I'd done the work, and that I was prepared for the challenges on and off the field. And in the game, like, I always knew that the game was going to be challenging. I never go into the game thinking it's going to be easy, especially in the hot conditions that we play in. I knew I'd be stronger in the contest, and I'd never back out because I had worked on my strength. And I knew that if I made a chase in the game or something like that, that I would be able to recover quickly from it, because I'd just done way longer sprints earlier that week. So the program definitely prepared me for the challenges that I faced on the field.
And in terms of feedback, how did the feedback you received from myself, but also external to the program, coaches, other people, how did that contribute to your development as a player?
Yeah, I love taking on feedback. I think it's a really great opportunity to learn. And I think it helped by taking on feedback, because I was able to improve on my weaknesses, and it made things easier for me. But I think my development as a player came from those external feedback revenues, especially from people like coaches and yourself.
And how does the FootyFit program compare to other training programs that you've been a part of in the past?
So I briefly participated in an online program, but in terms of your program, it worked a lot better for me because it included some in-person sessions, connecting with other people in the program, like other like-minded people, which, you know, it's always good to see a friendly face on the field. And I also liked your program because it was really diverse in the lights of having mobility and swimming in it as well, which compared, like the other program didn't have that. It was just kind of running a gym. Whereas I really like doing those extras of mobility and swimming and agility and all those sorts of things. So I feel like I'm getting what I need out of your program.
I love hearing you say that, because those are two of my favorite things, is swimming and mobility. And I feel like I'm harping on them constantly. Mobility, not only will that like dramatically reduce your risk for injury and bulletproof your body, it will actually enhance your performance just so much. I think it's just an unsung hero that everyone needs to do, as is like swimming. In terms of, if you do anything that's got any form of like aerobic endurance in it, even if it doesn't, like sprinters, I like to get them in the pool. Like, just swimming is just one of the best things I think you can do. So I'm glad that you liked it.
Yeah, I love mobility as well. It's so easy and you can definitely feel the benefits. Like, you do it one week and then you do it the next week and you can already do it better. It's like nice.
Yeah. So in terms of, so wrapping up, last question, what advice would you give to fellow footballers who are considering a strength and conditioning program to maximize their performance and take their game to the next level?
I would say if you're looking to improve your game, give it a go, but definitely be careful because the results are addictive and you'll probably love it. But also just don't be scared to try new things and get out of your comfort zone, because that's when doors start opening for you. And I don't think I would have landed this Cairns gig if it wasn't for the effort I was putting in through the program. So yeah, that would be my advice. Just give it a go and see if you like it.
Thank you very much. So Bella, what's next for you? It's mid-2024. What's coming up and what's next?
Yeah, so I'll hopefully finish off playing a few games in Cairns, hopefully make finals, play with them. Already in talks with the coach about possibly next season for them as well. And yeah, I'll definitely be playing the NTFL 2024-25 season. So I'm looking forward to that.
Bella, thank you so much for your time today on the Women's Footy Podcast, and best wishes with FootyFit and your footy career in the future.
Thanks, Jacob.
Are you a footballer who wants to maximize your performance to succeed at the top level? My new ebook, Strength and Conditioning 101 for Female Footballers, is now available. For free and instant access, simply head on over to jacobandre.com. Link is in the show notes.